The morning sun slid over the Alberta hills, painting Heartland Ranch in gold. But the quiet beauty couldn't hide the unease in Amy's chest. Spartan hadn't eaten since dawn. His eyes, usually bright and alert, were dull. She tried to shake off the worry there was no time for fear when the world expected perfection. Today, an Olympian was arriving with a horse worth more than most people's homes. And Amy Fleming couldn't afford mistakes. The ranch hummed with activity. Birds sang from the fence posts, and the smell of hay mixed with the crisp by-the-fall air. Amy tightened Spartan's reins, whispering softly, "Easy, boy. We've got this." He flicked an ear in response, loyal as ever, but his movements were slow. Something was off. Jack stood by the barn door, coffee in hand. "He's not himself today," he said, nodding toward Spartan. Amy forced a smile. "Maybe he's just tired. We've been training a lot lately." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Don't ignore the signs, Amy. You know better than anyone horses talk, just not with words." Before she could reply, the sound of a sleek black truck rolling up the gravel path broke the stillness. A tall woman stepped out, wearing a sharp riding jacket and confidence like armor. Evelyn Blake, three-time Olympic medalist and Heartland's newest client. "Amy Fleming," Evelyn greeted, her handshake firm. "I've heard you're the best at what you do." Amy smiled politely. "I'll do everything I can for your horse, Miss Blake. Please, call me Evelyn." "And I hope that's true. My horse Apollo hasn't let anyone near him since the accident." When Apollo was unloaded, Amy's breath caught. The stallion was magnificent, muscles rippling under a dark chestnut coat, eyes sharp and restless. But there was pain in his movements, mistrust in the way he jerked his head from human touch. Amy felt it instantly. "He's scared," she murmured. Evelyn crossed her arms. "He's stubborn. Needs control." Amy met her gaze. "He needs patience." They worked in silence for a while. Amy approached Apollo with gentle steps, her voice low and steady. She didn't pull the lead rope. She let him decide to come closer. After a long moment, the stallion snorted and took one tentative step toward her. Evelyn's eyebrows rose in surprise. "That's something," Amy said softly, smiling. "He's trying." Jack watched from the fence, pride flickering in his weathered face. "That girl's got her mother's gift," he whispered. As the day stretched on, Amy worked between Apollo's tense energy and Spartan's quiet fatigue. Every now and then, she glanced at her old partner, standing near the paddock, head low. Guilt pricked her heart. "I'll check on you soon, boy," she promised under her breath. When the session ended, Evelyn seemed satisfied almost. "You've got talent," she admitted, "but I expect results fast." "I understand," Amy replied, though her voice wavered slightly. "Good," Evelyn said, turning away. "Because I don't have time for fairy tales about trust and healing. I need him ready for the circuit." After she left, the ranch grew quiet again. The sky turned a deep, bruised orange. Amy leaned against a fence, watching Spartan nibble weakly at his feed. Jack joined her, his gaze steady. "You've got a full plate," he said. Amy nodded. "I can handle it." But even as she said it, her gut twisted. Something told her this calm was only the beginning, and that before long, everything she'd built, everything she loved, would be tested harder than ever. The wind carried a sharp chill the next morning, rustling through the aspen trees like a warning. The day began with promise. Evelyn's luxury trailer gleamed under the early light, and Amy had planned a calm groundwork session for Apollo. But beneath the neat order of her schedule, tension coiled tight in her chest. Spartan had refused breakfast again. She stroked his muzzle, whispering, "Come on, buddy. You never turn down oats." His breath felt warmer than usual, shallow, uneasy. A quiet fear settled in her stomach. She made a mental note to call the vet after her session with Apollo. Just a quick check, she told herself. It was probably nothing. Across the paddock, Evelyn paced like a general before battle. "We'll need to increase Apollo's endurance today," she said. "He's got to relearn discipline." Amy nodded, forcing calm into her voice. "We'll push him when he's ready, not before." Evelyn frowned. "You're too gentle. He needs control, not coddling." Amy bit back a retort. Instead, she clicked her tongue and began the session. Apollo circled her, muscles tight, eyes wide. Every step was a test of trust. Gradually, his movements softened, the line between fear and focus blurring. Just when Amy felt a spark of connection, a heavy thud made her heart stop. Spartan had collapsed near the fence. Amy dropped the rope and sprinted toward him. Dust rose around her boots. "Spartan!" she cried, kneeling beside him. His chest heaved, nostrils flaring. She felt for a pulse, trembling. "Come on, boy. Stay with me." Evelyn jogged over, her brow furrowed. "Is he okay?" Amy didn't answer. She couldn't. Jack and Tim rushed from the barn, their faces etched with alarm. "Get the vet now." Jack barked. Evelyn stood back, crossing her arms. "This doesn't look good," she muttered, almost to herself. "If she can't even keep her own horse healthy, how can she handle mine?" The words pierced through Amy like ice. She glanced up, her eyes sharp but wet. "You don't know what you're talking about," Evelyn shrugged. "Reputation matters, Amy, especially in my world." By evening, Spartan was stable but weak. The vet suspected an infection and promised to run tests. Amy stayed by his stall long after everyone else left, brushing his coat, whispering old stories to fill the silence, but gossip spreads faster than truth. The next morning, Lou found Amy sitting on the porch, scrolling through her phone. Online forums buzzed with whispers. Heartland-inspired trainer slipping? Klein blames Amy. Fleming after horse falls ill. Lou placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You can't control what people say." Amy's voice cracked. "They think I hurt him, Lou. They think I'm losing my touch." From behind them, Jack's voice was firm. "You know the truth. And so does that horse in there." "Let that be enough for now," Amy nodded. But the seed of doubt had already rooted deep. Her name, once spoken with respect, was now tangled in rumors. And somewhere inside, a darker question began to form. What if Evelyn was right? What if she really had lost her edge? Rain rolled in the next morning, heavy and cold, turning the dirt paths of Heartland into dark ribbons of mud. The sky hung low over the valley, pressing down like the weight in Amy's chest. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Spartan falling, heard Evelyn's voice echoing, "If she can't even keep her own horse healthy." By noon, the ranch phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, clients, and curious riders wanted the same thing: answers. Lou tried to intercept the calls, but word had already spread beyond Hudson. A local paper ran an article titled "Heartland Trainer Under Fire After Horse Collapse." There was a photo of Amy standing beside Spartan, her expression unreadable, and the caption beneath twisted her silence into guilt. Inside the barn, the rhythmic patter of rain on the tin roof became a cruel reminder of time slipping away. Amy stood beside Spartan's stall, resting her forehead against the wooden gate. He lifted his head weakly, eyes half-lidded but trusting. "You've never given up on me," she whispered, voice trembling. "So I won't give up on you." Jack stepped in quietly, the brim of his hat dripping rain. "Vet just called. They're still running tests." "No news yet." Amy nodded without turning. "I can't wait around, Grandpa. I have to do something." Jack sighed. "Sometimes doing nothing is the hardest kind of doing something. Let the truth come out on its own." She shook her head. "Evelyn's already telling people I overworked Spartan. If I don't defend myself, I'll lose everything Mom built here." Before Jack could respond, the sound of tires crunching through wet gravel echoed outside. A car door slammed. Amy straightened, heart pounding. Evelyn had returned. She entered the barn wearing a sleek raincoat, her hair tied back, posture as sharp as ever. "I came to collect Apollo," she said flatly. Amy's stomach dropped. "You can't just take him. He's not ready yet." Evelyn's eyes flashed. "I can't risk his training with someone under public scrutiny. My sponsors are asking questions." Jack stepped forward, voice low and warning. "This isn't the time to make a scene." Evelyn ignored him. "I gave you a chance, Amy, but I can't afford bad press. You might have talent, but right now, you're a liability." The words struck deep. Amy clenched her fists, trying to steady her voice. "You're blaming me for something you don't understand. Spartan didn't collapse because of me. He's sick. I've dedicated my life to helping horses heal." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Then maybe you should start by healing your own." The silence after that was deafening. Even the rain seemed to hold its breath. Amy's throat burned, tears threatening, but she refused to let them fall. "If you take Apollo now, you'll undo everything we've worked for." He's finally starting to trust again. Evelyn's tone softened, but only slightly. Trust doesn't win medals. Control does. Jack's voice cut through the tension. You're wrong, Miss Blake. Control breaks horses. Trust makes champions. Evelyn hesitated, eyes flickering toward Spartan's stall. For a moment, something like guilt crossed her face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. I'll send someone tomorrow to pick him up, she said, turning away. When she left, the sound of the rain returned steady, relentless, almost cruel. Amy sank onto a bale of hay, head in her hands. Jack knelt beside her, voice gentle but firm. Don't let pride speak louder than the truth. You know who you are. That's all that matters. But Amy wasn't sure anymore. Doubt crept in like the chill from the storm. She thought about her mother, about all the people who had believed in her gift. What if she'd lost it? What if the spark that once connected her to horses had dimmed? That night, the vet called back. The infection in Spartan's system wasn't caused by overtraining, it had been a reaction to contaminated feed. Amy felt her knees weaken with relief. It wasn't her fault, but the damage was already done. Evelyn's accusations had spread far beyond Heartland. Amy walked to Spartan's stall one last time before bed. The lantern light flickered across his face as she brushed his mane. They can say what they want, she whispered, but I know you, and you know me. That's enough. Spartan's breath steadied, a soft exhale that sounded almost like forgiveness. Outside, the rain began to ease, breaking into gentle drops. Amy looked out into the darkness, realizing that sometimes the worst storms don't come from the sky, they come from within. But somewhere beneath the fear and exhaustion, a quiet fire began to stir. She wasn't done. Not yet. Tomorrow, she would face Evelyn, the rumors, and the world if she had to. Because Heartland wasn't just a ranch, it was her promise to every horse that had ever needed a second chance. The dawn broke clean after the storm, the kind of morning that smelled like second chances. Sunlight poured through the barn windows, catching in the dust that danced above the hay bales. For the first time in days, Amy felt a flicker of peace. Spartan was standing stronger, his eyes brighter, his breathing even. The vet's report, still open on the kitchen table, had confirmed everything. The infection had come from tainted feed, not training. Amy had done nothing wrong. But the truth, she knew, wasn't enough unless people heard it. Lou found her leaning against the paddock fence, coffee mug in hand, eyes on the hills. The vet emailed me the full report, Lou said softly. It clears you completely. We can send it to the press, to Evelyn, to everyone. Amy nodded but didn't move. Evidence won't change what people believe, she murmured. I have to show them. A few hours later, Evelyn's trailer rumbled up the dirt path again. Amy was already waiting, Spartan grazing quietly behind her. Evelyn stepped out looking polished as always, but her expression carried something new, caution, maybe even doubt. I got your message, Evelyn said, folding her arms. You said you had something to show me. Amy nodded toward Spartan. Come inside. The barn was quiet except for the creak of the floorboards and the soft rhythm of Spartan's breath. Amy handed Evelyn the vet's report, the ink still fresh. It wasn't overtraining, she said. The feed was contaminated. The lab confirmed it. Evelyn scanned the paper, her jaw tightening as she read. You're saying this wasn't your fault, I'm saying. Amy replied evenly. I never hurt my horse. Or yours. For a long moment, Evelyn said nothing. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant sound of a horse snickering outside. Then, without a word, she turned to Apollo's stall. The stallion lifted his head as she approached, ears flicking forward. Amy watched her quietly, noticing how Evelyn's movements were stiff, controlled, precise, but missing the softness that came from true connection. Amy stepped closer. May I? She asked. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Amy approached Apollo slowly, her voice a low hum. Hey boy, remember me? The stallion's muscles tensed, but his eyes tracked her every step. She reached out, palm open, and after a long pause, he lowered his head into her hand. A small, fragile moment, but it was enough. Evelyn's breath caught. He hasn't done that for anyone since the fall, she whispered. Amy smiled faintly. He just needed time to believe again. Evelyn looked away, guilt flickering across her face. I was wrong about you, Amy shook her head. You were scared. We all are when the things we love stop listening to us. For the first time, Evelyn's posture softened. She looked around the barn, the worn wood, the warm light, the quiet strength of the place. You built something real here, she said quietly. I was too busy protecting my reputation to see it, Amy exhaled, the tension finally breaking. Heartland isn't about trophies or headlines. It's about trust. Between people and horses. And between people themselves. Evelyn nodded slowly, eyes on Apollo. Would you keep working with him? If you'll still have us. Amy's smile returned, gentle but sure. I never gave up on either of you. They spent the afternoon retraining together. This time, Evelyn followed Amy's lead, learning the patience she'd once mocked. Apollo moved freer, calmer, as if sensing the change between the two women. By sunset, his trot was steady, his fear replaced by focus. When they finished, Evelyn turned to Amy. I'll make things right. I'll talk to the press, tell them the truth. You don't deserve what's been said, Amy nodded. Just tell them what happened honestly. That's all I need. Later that evening, Jack and Lou joined her by Spartan's paddock. The ranch glowed in the fading light, the sky painted in soft oranges and pinks. Spartan nickered softly, pressing his nose against Amy's shoulder. You did it, Lou said with a proud smile. You cleared your name, Amy looked at Spartan, running a hand down his neck. No. We did it. And maybe it's not about clearing names anymore. Maybe it's about remembering why I started this in the first place. Jack nodded approvingly. Your mom would be proud, Amy smiled, blinking back a tear. I hope so. As the last light dipped behind the hills, Amy felt something she hadn't in a long time: peace. The truth was out. The storm had passed. And even though the world might still whisper, she knew who she was again. And that was enough. The night was still, wrapped in a hush that only Heartland could hold. The moon hung full above the fields, silvering the fences and turning the pasture into a sheet of quiet light. Amy stood by Spartan's paddock, her breath visible in the cool air. For the first time in weeks, her heart didn't race with fear or doubt. It beat steady, calm, like the rhythm of a horse's gait on open land. Spartan stood close beside her, his coat catching the moonlight, the faint scar along his neck barely visible now. He nuzzled her shoulder, and Amy smiled. You scared me, you know that? She whispered, stroking his mane. But maybe we both needed a reminder that healing doesn't mean rushing. Behind her, the barn lights flickered on. Jack stepped out, his steps slow, familiar. He carried 2 mugs of steaming cocoa and handed one to her. Couldn't sleep? He asked. Amy shook her head. Too quiet, Jack chuckled. Quiet's good. Means the world's still turning the way it should. They stood in silence for a moment. The sounds of the ranch soft around them, the creak of wood, the distant whinny of a horse, the whisper of wind through dry grass. Then Jack said, Evelyn called me earlier, told me she went on record this afternoon. Cleared your name. Amy looked at him in surprise. She didn't have to. She did anyway. Said she learned something here. Said she finally understands the difference between control and connection. Amy smiled faintly. Guess even Olympians can learn a thing or two from Heartland. Jack laughed, deep and warm. You know, your mom used to say this place wasn't just for horses, it was for people who'd lost their way. Looks like you helped Evelyn find hers. Amy didn't answer right away. She watched Spartan graze lazily under the stars, then said quietly, I think I needed to find mine too. For a while, I forgot why I do this. It stopped being about the horses and started being about proving myself. That's not what Mom would have wanted, Jack nodded, his eyes soft. That's the thing about storms, they wash away what doesn't matter. Leave the truth behind. Amy sipped her cocoa, the warmth grounding her. Do you think people will ever stop doubting me? Jack looked out across the fields. Maybe not. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because you're not here to prove them wrong. You're here to do right by the ones who trust you. The words sank deep, steady, and sure. She thought of every horse that had passed through Heartland, every broken spirit she'd seen come back to life. Maybe that was her purpose, not to be perfect, but to keep showing up, again and again, with patience and faith. The next morning, sunlight poured over the ranch like forgiveness. Evelyn returned, not in designer boots or a polished jacket, but in jeans and a simple flannel. She worked side by side with Amy, grooming Apollo, cleaning tack, learning the quiet rhythm of Heartland's heart. There were no reporters, no audience, just two women rebuilding trust. One breath, one step at a time. By mid-afternoon, Lou appeared with Georgie and Katie, laughter spilling through the air as they joined Amy in the corral. The ranch felt alive again, humming with the same warmth it always had before the world's noise crept in. When the sun began to set, Amy led Spartan out to the open field. The wind swept through her hair, and the sky turned gold. She placed a hand on his neck and whispered, "Ready to run again?" Spartan tossed his head, eager, alive. They took off together, hooves pounding against the earth, the sound echoing across the valley. For a moment, it felt like time folded in on itself, like her mother was there, like every mistake and every victory had led exactly here. When they slowed to a stop, Amy dismounted, breathing hard but smiling. Spartan snorted and nudged her shoulder, as if to say, "We made it." She laughed softly. "Yeah, we did." As the sky dimmed into twilight, the lights from the farmhouse flickered on. Jack waved from the porch, Lou called her in for dinner, and the scent of home